Apreciados amigos y amigas, qué alegría que estemos todos juntos aquí en la Iglesia de Todos los Santos. Dear friends, what a joy it is for us to be here together at All Saints Church. Wish we were all here in this room, and we are still so connected wherever you are, us here. This is what it means to be in community. So glad that you're with us. If this is your first time entering the orbit of All Saints Church, know that we are so glad that you have come into this space, are eager for you to offer who you are becoming into this community, and see what God does with all of it. My name is Mike Kinman. Mi nombre Mike Kinman. Soy Rector. I am the Rector, the chief pastor of this congregation. Mis pronombres son él. My pronouns are he, him. So glad you're here today. We're going to get to our Rector's Forum in just a second. Have a couple other announcements. Our ministry on site is continuing just as our ministry everywhere is continuing. This morning at our Sunday food program, we gave out 53 lunches, 80 masks. And so thanks to Erica, Corey, Corazon, and Bob who are out here this morning. And also to all of the people in our Safe Haven community, members of this community, who are helping out as well, keeping this facility just in wonderful shape, and to all of our building and grounds workers who are doing the same thing. Every week, we have a partner in love, a community partner in this Pasadena community that is doing incredible work during this pandemic, helping us heal, helping us sustain. Our partner in love this week is Union Station Homeless Services. Union Station Homeless Services is a dear and longtime friend, actually began in many ways out of All Saints Church, has been our partner in the Safe Haven Bridge to Housing program here at All Saints. And so today, we love your generosity to All Saints Church. We encourage also your generosity to Union Station Homeless Services. If you're on Facebook, the link is going in the chat now, or you can just go to unionstationhs.org. Learn more about Union Station and make sure to click on that donate button and make a gift to the amazing work our partner in love, Union Station Homeless Services, does. I am so thrilled with our guest this morning. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. Our guest is Brother Gerald Rivers. I'm going to read a little bit about him, and then we're going to get going. Gerald grew up in Compton, studied at the Sheenway Theater Arts Repertory in Los Angeles, and earned an Associate of Arts degree in Theater Arts from LA City College, where he also served 2 terms as the ASO president, was a 3-time national gold medalist in dramatic interpretation with the National Forensics League, and then went on to study theater and marketing at Morehouse College in Atlanta. He is a classically trained actor and is known best for his portrayals of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He has committed dozens of Dr. King's speeches to memory and has performed them all over the country, garnering recognition from the King family, the King Center, the NAACP, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the National Baptist Convention. He's also done voiceover work for countless animated features and video games. And in addition to all that, he's a master drummer and djembe player. And he teaches basic and advanced rhythms, both traditional and contemporary, including techniques like bass, tone, and slap sounds. He enjoys educating his students on the ancient history of the instrument and its healing power. He frequently teaches and leads drum circle performances for children, high school students, and adults. And during the pandemic, Gerald has been leading them outdoors in our parking lot. And so we're now having drum circles every Saturday morning at 10 a.m., from 10 to 11 a.m. So please come on by. He even brings the djembes, he brings the drums. And so just want to say welcome, Gerald. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. We want to, if you have questions that you want to text in, I'm going to be getting texts on my phone. The number is 910-TEXT-ASC, TEXT-ASC. That's also 910-839-8272, 910-839-8272. Gerald, welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you once again for having me. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
You bet. Can you talk a little bit, before we get into these drums and what drumming is, how did you get introduced to West African drumming?
That is another interesting story. I grew up in Compton, and when we were kids, we used to go to Compton College to run around the track, and it wasn't quite a park, but it was one of the few spaces that was available to us. And often there would be a multi-purpose room where there was music being played. So as we would walk by, sometimes I would stick my head in, and there would be these guys on djembe, and the whole room would be sort of dancing and grooving. It was this feeling of just, you could feel the room sort of lifting and bouncing together. And I never played then. And then when I went to school in Atlanta, after school, I went to work for a theater company called the Academy Theater, which at the time was Atlanta's oldest existing professional theater company. And I was an associate artistic director there, and I taught something that was called an alternative approach to acting. So my teacher there never studied theater. He only studied psychology and human behavior, and used that influence to affect people's ability to act and perform on stage. So as a representative of the theater, I went to a conference in Black Mountain, South Carolina, where there were other artists there, and I was teaching theater, and somebody else was teaching and holding these drum circles. So I went to the drum circle, and I would sit and watch just sort of in awe, and I could feel this music sort of in me. But again, I'd never played. I didn't know anything about them, how the drums were made. There was an older African-American woman with long dreadlocks, and ironically enough, at the time, I did not have dreads at all. And I saw her playing, and there was this white fur on the rim of her drum. And she looked at me, and she could just tell. She was like, "You want to play, don't you?" And I said, "I do, but I've never played before." And then she said, "It's okay. Just sit down and listen and play what you feel." So I sat down for what I thought would be a few minutes. Some 2 or 3 hours later, my hands were bleeding.
Yeah.
And there were no cuts,
Yeah.
but my hands were swollen, and there was blood coming from the pores.
Right.
And I had spilled my own blood on the white fur of this woman's
wow.
beautiful drum, and was horrified. And I looked at her and I said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." I mean, I didn't know. I was just playing and playing and playing. And I could finally see the blood sort of splashing and staining.
Yeah.
And I said, "What can I do? Is there a way to clean it?" And she said, "No." She said, "You have just been baptized as a drummer." She was like, "You will forever be a drummer, and the drumming will forever be in you." And she could not have been more right. So at the theater, we brought an African ballet from West Africa to Georgia Tech. And I went there to support the event because we co-sponsored it. And in the lobby, they were selling small djembes. And I bought my first one then. Very simple, no fancy carvings, just this hourglass shape and a goat skin, no fur, tight rope. And I took that drum home and I played, and my daughter, who's now about 28, learned to play then too. And we would just bang, and it bonded us. And then not a whole lot until I returned back to LA, when I was working with a group called Colors United in Watts. And we were doing work exposing kids from rival gangs to the arts. And they performed together, and I directed shows with them, and there was a drum teacher there. And I would sit in and just sort of have the fever. And just, I could not help but resist, but to just play whenever I heard them. Then I bought several drums. Then I would go to drum circles at Venice Beach and Griffith Park, but my challenge there was they weren't listening. They weren't playing traditional West African rhythms. They were just playing to hear themselves play, and I became so frustrated that it was like, this is not what I had in mind for myself. It's just a bunch of people just sort of making noise. It's like there's more to this process than that. And then people would invite me to their homes and to drum circles, and I would go, and nobody knew how to play. I complained to my friends long enough until they started saying, if you want people to learn how to play, you might have to teach them. And I took one student over 15 years ago, and I've had hundreds of students since then. So much so that I started teaching at the Ocean Charter School, which is a Waldorf school on the west side, and I was borrowing drums from my friends because the school had circus drums and preschool drums, and I was like, this is not what I had in mind. And the gentleman found out I was borrowing drums that he provided for several different people. His name is Mara Dakate, and he's from Senegal. And he said, I'm going to come and see what you're doing with all of my drums. He came and took one look, and he said, I'm going to make sure you have brand new drums, handmade, directly from Senegal, West Africa, for all of your students, and began providing drums from that day forward. So here we are some 10 years later, and he still is my direct connection to get these drums handmade, organic cotton rope, natural goat skin, no machines involved, and all of the proceeds go back to benefit the village in Senegal where the drums are all being handmade. So it's this wonderful sort of win-win-win-win-win for everybody. And ironically enough, we had a hard time during the pandemic with some of the programs, and we appealed to the helpful Honda people and their random acts of helpfulness. And they bought us 25 brand new drums directly from West Africa to both support the village and make sure the schools, even while they were shut down, would have brand new drums whenever they came back to school.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I just can't help myself.
Well, that's great. So when you come and do the drum circle on our parking lot, what I love is people who've never touched a drum in their life. You meet everyone where they are, and you tell us some of the history of it, and you talk about just sort of the healing powers of drumming. Just, can you go into a little bit of that? What is some of the history of West African drumming? Talk about it as a healing
The djembe
entity.
in particular is a unique instrument in drum in terms of its sort of goblet or hourglass shape, and that they're usually made from a teak hardwood from naturally felled trees, organic cotton rope, and a natural goat skin. And I share with people often that they don't kill the goat just so we can have drums. The goats often have a long, healthy life, providing milk and fur for the village. And then after the goats had a good time, they were eating the goat meat, and what's left are skin and bones. And the bones are either buried ceremoniously or discarded, and the skin is then converted into the head for a drum, where it can then have a whole nother life for up to 100 years. The word djembe literally translates, I believe, from the Bambara to community gathering together in peace. Like, both of those words are important, both the community, the gathering together, and the idea that it's all happening in peace, under the umbrella and in the guise of peace and love. So these drum circles are literally what the djembe is. It's like, it's a circle. It's we gather together in peace, and for a few minutes, we're all in one accord. And you know, in terms of a religious teaching, it talks about when there are 2 or 3 gathered together in my name, that I will be a God in the midst. Drumming becomes that kind of communal, congregational gathering, that we're gathering together in the name of peace, in the name of love, in the name of hope, in the name of truth, in the name of creativity and togetherness. And I love the fact that people from anywhere can play djembe. People often ask me, I don't know if I can play. Can I learn to play? And my response consistently is, if you have a heartbeat, you can learn to play the djembe. You don't have to hold sticks. There isn't some fancy form. I try and teach people to play properly so that they don't hurt their hands. But the idea is that we play with intention. We play in joy. We play in celebration. We can also pray and play in mourning and in sadness. The beauty of the drum in general is that every dominant culture on the face of the planet throughout history has had some association with a drum, whether it's Celtic or Asian or Latin or European or African, doesn't really matter. Everybody's got a relationship to the drum because it connects us at our heart space. It really goes back to that. And if you can be quiet enough to listen to your own heartbeat, your own rhythm, then you can play djembe.
Oh, that's wonderful. So now talk about like the drum I have and the drum you have. Tell the stories of these drums.
This one comes directly from Senegal, and this is what's known as a pro drum.
Okay.
So if you notice, if you were to set it flat on the ground, it's got what amounts to an inlay in that upper part and also another one in the bottom. So what they've done is they've shaved a thin layer, probably about less than 1/4 of an inch, probably like 1/8 of an inch, and then put this thread or piping inside. That's not just for making it look pretty. That also creates a different resonator inside of the drum. So that drum, as a quote-unquote pro drum, will offer the drummer a little more sound, a little more variation than a traditional djembe, which is often just flat on the side, which sounds great, and we can evoke all kinds of sounds out of them. But this one might be played with a band or in a group with other instruments, with the idea that it can cut through some of the other business that's going on. This drum, I personally had designed and made for me. I discovered this shell, and on this shell there are masks and faces all the way around. And I was just so intrigued by the African mask down here and the very dark wood that I was like, I'd like that shell to become a drum just for me. And so once that was done, and this beautiful mask are all the way around, and each side has a different mask, I just loved it. And so then I told them I want that base, and then I chose the goat skin. They laid out several goat skins for me, and I said, that looks like the one I should have. So of course, when you first get it, this is completely covered with the goat fur or hair. So when it becomes a djembe, they can shave it all off, and they don't have to keep this hair on the side. That's more of a decorative, stylish, and I like it because over time, all of this hair is going to be beat off. But just from playing it, it's going to be bald. And if you notice on that one, around the edges, you can see where some of the hair is lost, where it's gone a little bald, and that only happens from playing the drum. And when you first get them, and we get them shipped directly from Senegal, not only do they smell like the sand in the beaches of Africa, but there is a thin layer of hair, almost like a 5 o'clock shadow. So when you're playing them, you can feel that, there's still little hairs that are left on it that, again, will only be removed from playing the drum. There's nothing else that's going to get the rest of that hair off.
Now, if you look at this, and I'm sure it's the same, but really you can see it here. There's a line. Thanks, Keith. There's a line going right down the middle. Can you talk about that?
What we teach is that represents the spine of the animal that made it possible for us to play this drum, and that's the skin of that goat. So they've designed it so that that spine should be in alignment with your own spine, and that's the best tuning or way that the drum can be played. And it also just reminds us to have a little reverence for the things that once lived, that represent inanimate objects, and now are only enlivened by us putting our own energy and spirit into them. And we talk about the drum being tilted forward because the sound comes out of the bottom of the drum based on this design. And I encourage people to tilt the drum forward so that when you're playing the drum, you are literally creating a vibration that is coming out of the bottom of the drum and then riding up your own spine. So again, we're participating in this recycling of energy and thought and prayer and intention that is our own participation in our own healing. And so the djembe is just unique in so many ways. The other thing is the number of sounds that come out of one drum. So many drums. When you play a drum kit, you have to have several different drums. Right. You've got a bass, you've got a snare, you've got cymbals, you've got other drums that you can play. When you play congas, often you're playing 1, 2, 3. Some people can play 4 or 5 congas at the same time. When you play bongos, which people often confuse the word bongo as a word for a drum, but the bongo is the small set of 2 drums that can be played back and forth. The conga, not Congo, that's a region in Africa, but the conga is the tall sort of Latin influence drum, and then there's this djembe. So that conga's made kind of like this, where the djembe is made almost like an hourglass or a goblet shape to represent its history and its reverence about time and about celebration.
Wow. So demonstrate, like you said, it can make a whole bunch of sounds. Like, walk us through some of the sounds that the djembe can make.
You know, if the djembe's tilted away from the player so that you can have that vibration riding up your own spine. And then there are 4 or 5 different sounds. So the first one is the bass sound. Okay. So in order to evoke that bass, we create what amounts to a cup. The idea that we're almost trying to prevent water or air from escaping. Then we strike the drum directly in the center. That's where the most bass is. And we get our hands off as quickly as possible. So in the teaching style, we talk about imagine that the drum is hot. It's not a place to rest your hands. Right. It's a place to play. So that bass note, and the way that djembes have been taught for centuries is the master drummer plays a simple rhythm and then the students copy what they hear. And what I do is I'll play that rhythm and then I'll open my hands. So for your viewers and listeners at home, when I open my hands, that's an opportunity for you to play. If you have a djembe, that's great. If you don't, you can play on the table to create a little muscle memory before they show up for your actual class or drum circle that we hold here. So here's that bass sound. Okay. Nice, deep, resonant sound. That's what we do first. That's the bass sound. And I talk about playing drumbidextrous. So we also want to play with your left hand because we don't have a dominant hand. You have a dominant hand in other things, but for djembe drumming, you want both your hands to be relatively fair. The other thing, I'll just say this before we go on, is I learned things about people playing drums that I never thought that I would. Often it represents some imbalance in their life or in their nature. Often it represents a side that is underexpressed or underrepresented by the way that they play their drums. So people have a hard time playing with their left hand or their right hand. Either means they're more mechanical and mathematic, they're more analytical, or they're a little more creative and free, but both of those can have great balance by learning to play the drum. So we also play with our left hand. And the thing is, we learn to play properly with this technique, but eventually we have a splay, because we can still do this and evoke the same sound. Yeah. So for some people, when they're playing really fast, it's hard to go from this back to a splay. So if your hands are open, you can play other things. So that's the bass note. Next is the tone sound. Here, the unique part about the djembe is that you've got that deep resonant bass, and in the same drum, you have a high, almost pan metal sound. For this one, the hands are nice and loose, fingers are nice and loose. Close to the rim of the drum, it sounds like a metal. Same drum. And we play with the left hand as well. We have the bass. The other hand. We have the tone. Same drum. And the other hand. And that sort of rhythm of just timing, boom, 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 it gets into the listener and the students sort of into their body, and then we can start to build from that. The next one is what we call the slap sound, and it combines both the bass and the tone with one strike. So we allow this part of the hand to fall ergonomically on the rim of the drum, and the fingers collapse onto the drum. We stretch them out as close as we can get to the middle so that we create the bass and the tone together. Again, if you listen, here's bass, here's tone, here's the slap that puts both of them together. So inside of there, you hear boom and boom, both happening at the same time. Very nice. Other side. So now you have bass, you have tone, you have slap, and then we have what's known as the knock sound. So it's almost like knocking on a door. You take your left hand or your off hand, you press down, putting a little pressure on the center of the drum, you combine it with that tone that we just learned, and it sounds like you're knocking on the door. And we can do that on the other side as well. Again, we got this, we got this, we got this, and then we've got this. And then the last one is what we call the flam. So both hands strike the drum, but not exactly at the same time. They're right behind each other. So everything inside of djembe playing is a combination and sometimes a mix of those tones and sounds and notes that we have at our disposal. So every class that I teach here, and generally when I teach any class, almost like covering your scales on the piano, we go back and help people understand these are the notes that you have to play with so that when we're combining them, you're going back to remember, oh, I know which one that is. That's an A or that's an F, that's a slap, that's a tone, that's a bass. The primary rhythm we teach first is what we call the heartbeat rhythm. And I'm going to play it fast so that people understand where we're going with it. So this sounds like a traditional West African rhythm. Doing is combining bass, tone, tone. What's important is that we play right, left, right. We also play left, right, left. And then we put those two together. I know we're going a little fast, but it goes right, left, right, left, right, left. And for those who have other musical inclinations, it almost sounds like a waltz. It goes boom, ga, ga, boom, ga, ga, boom, ga, ga. And that, when we hold on to it, we call it sitting in the rhythm. We just play the same rhythm over and over. And this is where the meditation takes place. Right, left, right, left, right, left. Right, left, right, left, right, left. Bass, tone, tone, bass, tone, tone. In, out, out, in, out, out. Different hand every time. And then we can increase the speed slightly. Right there's good. Because Mike can play so well, we're going to pick it up one more time. Oh, we can play a little faster than that. Nice. We got one more. And then there's what's known as the call inside of that sounds like this. That's an indicator. That's communicating with the larger group of drummers that we're beginning, we're ending, or we're transitioning.
Okay.
And sometimes that call can be, there are a few variations on it, but primarily it's right here. So a master drummer has got to play that and cut through everything so everybody knows here's the transition. We're coming to the end of the song. We're starting something new. And you just become accustomed to it and you listen. Let's do one more rhythm that I know you can play with me that starts simply. We learned right, left, right. Now we play right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left. Then we want to dress that one up a little bit more, and we can play bass, 1, 2, 3, 4, bass, 1, 2, bass, 1, 2, 3, 4, bass, 1, 2. Very nice. We can add one more flourish. We're playing bass, 1, 2, 3, 4, bass, clap. Bass, 1, 2, 3, 4, bass, clap. Bass, 1, 2, 3, 4, bass. So that's all the same song, and there are all those fancy variations that we have on that one, but then we can start combining them. So you're going to hold this for me. I'm going to offer a little variation. To the clap. And I'm going to offer the variation. Very nice. Woo! Mike's like the fancy drummer here. He can handle it all.
You said something when we were doing the drum circle yesterday that I thought was great because I've been doing this for a bunch of weeks with you, so I've had that chance to learn it. You said, because a lot of times, and I'll speak for myself, I try to get something done and I can't get it and I make mistakes and I get frustrated. Then you said the only appropriate response to messing up is to laugh.
So
and that was so important.
If you make what you're defining as a mistake, as a different choice than the rest of the group, the only appropriate response when drumming is to laugh. Because anything else is going to create a bottleneck in your ability to receive new information and have fun. The other thing is, when you're playing djembe, if at some point you're not laughing or smiling, then you're not doing it right.
That's right.
And so you just keep doing it, and you laugh at yourself, and you smile, and you go, I'm pretty good. That sounds pretty good. And again, it's bits and pieces. It's what some people would say, line upon line, precept upon precept. So the idea is you don't have to learn everything the first day. You just learn some basic stuff, and you hold on to that, and that's the building block for everything else that we do. I'm going to do one more, and I know our time may be drawing nigh.
No, we've still got about a half hour.
Okay, great. This one is what we call cuckoo, and it's a fun rhythm. And it's just played. Left, right, left, right. Start with your left. Start with your left. So I want to show people what we're doing. Literally, we've used that slap, which we didn't have a whole lot of, as an accent. So we're playing slap, bass, tone, tone. Slap, bass, tone, tone. Slap, bass, tone, tone. So this cuckoo is really a fun celebratory
that
rhythm.
Felt great.
And we jump in and we can get into that one pretty quick. So that primary rhythm is here. Then there's some fancy stuff in between, but then the other one that everybody can play and learn now, we play right, left, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, left, 1, 2, 3, 4. Bass, bass, love that chicken. 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 So we talk about those because there are polyrhythms, just like there are polythoughts. It's the idea that people who come from a different perspective can come together and play. They can offer their perspective and still be in tune and in alignment, at one-ment with the rest of the group. So we don't all have to be the same. We don't all have to play the same thing, but we do know that when we come from the same place, and we all know there's only one source anyway.
That's right.
When we come from the same place, it becomes relatively easy when we know that part first to get in touch and in tune with people that we've never seen before, people that we've never met before, people that we've never played with before, but there's something that connects us. And if we first recognize and acknowledge that I see the best in you and I'm showing you the best in me, even if I don't feel like I'm at my best, I'm seeing the best in you. As a drummer, as a participant in this circle, you're showing up saying, I'm here, I'm available, I'm ready, and I want to play. And so often we forget that we're supposed to have fun, that we're supposed to play. And as an adage in teaching, I say the number one rule is to listen more than you play. So we often say to our kids, you play too much. And it's not that they play too much, it's that they don't listen enough. There's not a parent listening that if their kids listened more, they would allow them to play more. And so we have to remember as adults, we need to listen more as well. Sometimes we need to listen to our children. Sometimes we need to listen to perspectives that are not our own in order to enjoy this thing we call life a little bit more. Sometimes we shut down and we stop listening, and that's what happens in politics, and sometimes that happens in religion, and sometimes that happens in relationships. So drumming is a metaphor for life in that we could all listen more. And the more we listen, the more we can play, the more we get to play, and the more fun we can actually have without shutting down thinking we know everything and we're right and they're wrong. And all of a sudden you have all these perspectives and positionalities and perches that people are on, and they're just offering a little bit of what they can do well. And then you have an orchestra of drums. You have this synergy that happens when I facilitate drum circles, and I've had them as large as 150 people. Our goal is for about 7 seconds to have everybody in tune. And the moment that happens, you can feel it. It's like everybody's like, I'm in it too, I'm doing it too. It's almost like when a choir sings in perfect harmony, all of a sudden you hear a buzz or a tone or a resonance that wasn't there before. You can feel it almost in the back of your jaw, like a chemical being released to express more joy. That happens with drumming if people listen more than they play, and then they offer the best of themselves.
So I'm struck. You said you used this with rival gang members.
We did.
And how did that, so like just as a way of coming together across conflict, what was the effect of that?
We produced a couple of pieces there, so we exposed them to Shakespeare in addition to drumming and Aikido and a host of other things. They're like, you're going to teach these kids martial arts? We're going to teach them martial arts, and we're going to teach them discipline first. You're going to teach them drumming and banging loud? Yes, we're going to teach them drumming and banging loud and have a place to express all those things that are going on inside of them without taking it out on another human being, on another individual. And in those moments, all of a sudden, people who might otherwise disagree realize we sound pretty good together. We actually have something in common. So they read Romeo and Juliet, and then they read West Side Story, and then we created a play called Watt Side Story that posed these gangs replacing the Jets and Sharks with Crips and Bloods from Watts and Compton, and we included the drums in the show. So not only did you have rival gangs on stage dancing, and we made it a little more hip-hop, but you had guys who might not otherwise agree or get along sitting next to each other playing drums, knowing in order for this to be successful, we've got to play in one accord. We've got to play with a single intention to be in union with one another. And then, you know, of course, our hope is maybe that's a little pinprick insight into what's possible. And some of these kids, obviously some of them did well, some of them got out of the gang, some of them went on to college, some of them went on to become teachers and went back to teach some of the same things. Some of them became counselors, some of them became doctors from Watts in Compton. And it had everything to do with coming together for a creative versus a destructive purpose and realizing we have more in common than we do that separates
So I think about that in community. I mean, there's a restorative justice aspect to drumming together is what I hear you describing. And so like one of the things, like I have a long prayer list, but part of it is people I'm in conflict with, because I know that in praying, you know, for people I'm in conflict with, what it makes me realize is that we're connected.
Hear, hear.
And it's harder for me to be upset with someone when I'm praying with them. And so I think about, wow, you know, we're a church, so we know a little something about conflict, because, you know, churches have conflict. I wonder the role that drumming could play in a community.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, again, the cultural divides that it bridges people from different cultures, because you could put taiko drums with djembes, you could put congas with djembes, you could put, I play with a Irish folk band. I play djembe while they're on violin and fiddle and drums and it's amazing how it all comes together and people actually appreciate it. I've also taken these drums into the prison at Terminal Island and had those guys who are in there for a host of different things just sit down and be able to play drums together. And initially, there's a resistance, like, what are these other people going to think about me doing this? And then you start to play and you start to have fun, and then other people realize, that looks pretty cool, and I can do that. I can do that. It's just my hands. I don't have to hold a stick. And some of what they're doing is relatively simple, but when you put it all together, it sounds like something complex. I went into youth detention facilities with a friend of mine named Akuyo Graham, who has a program called Spirit Awakening, and we took these drums into juvenile detention facilities with girls. And initially, some of the girls sit around like, I ain't doing that. That's
Right.
not cool. But within a matter of minutes, not weeks or months or years, within a matter of minutes, they're like, let me try one of those. And you have enough for everybody to play. And before you know it, some of the kids in the facility who are currently having conflict with one another are playing together and smiling and laughing and enjoying just being present with something relatively simple. It doesn't have to be fancy and complicated.
Yeah.
When it all comes together, it just comes together and reminds us that we all come from the same place and that ultimately we all want the same things. We want to be loved. We want to be respected. We want to be cared for. We want to have connection with other people regardless of what it looks like and what we might say on the surface. We desire to be loved, respected, cared for, and connected. And this does that for us in spades with no words ever having to be exchanged.
Amen. What else you got for us?
All right, let's do some, this one is, it's an Afro.
And play at home. I mean, this is like if you got people in your house who are asleep, like time for them to wake up. So just like whatever you have in front of you, just start playing with us.
This is an Afro-Cuban or Afro-Latin rhythm called Wawanko, but we often call it Walk the Fat Dog. And we
That's
can
right.
play it fast,
Yeah.
but it literally goes, walk the fat dog, walk the fat dog, walk the fat dog. I'm gonna go over because it may look like it's going faster than it is, but I'm literally playing right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, bass, tone, bass, slap, bass, tone, bass, slap, bass, tone, bass, slap. And of course we could play that faster. We're gonna play it just a little faster.
Okay.
So that becomes our primary rhythm. And we talk about the primary rhythm when we offer these polyrhythms. But again, the analogy is that it all comes from one place and that we can start there and that we can have individualized expressions that go in different directions, but we all come from the same place. So we're going to add a little more to that one. On the 4, we're going to play la, 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 la. So it's going to go walk the fat dog, walk the fat dog, walk the fat dog, la, 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 walk. So that gets into another aspect of drumming that we call conversation.
Okay.
So the idea that in a drum circle of 25, 50, or 100 people, there could be 2 people who connect who never have known each other before that moment. And so when we play with intention, this la 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 to me might represent, I'm in a great mood today.
Yeah.
And somebody else hears that and they go, me too, I'm in a great mood too. Or the person could be saying, things are a little rough right now.
Yeah.
And the other person might be saying, things are a little rough for me too. Or they might be saying, things are good, look on the bright side.
Yeah.
But again, we all want to be heard.
Yeah.
And so we can express ourselves through this drum and be heard and not have to explain to 25 people in the circle what's going on in my life right now.
Yeah.
But I just want to be heard. Do you hear me? And to have somebody echo and say, I hear you. I'm here with you. I've experienced the same thing. I got through it. You can get through it too. All with no words being exchanged. So we're going to play with that conversation a little bit. You're just going to echo what I play on that la la
Great.
la 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 la. I'm laughing now because Mike's one of my favorite drummers. Because he actually listens and he echoes, but that's part of this whole process.
Yeah.
That we can start having a conversation with somebody that we might not have otherwise spoken to before. And I know when I've been here in your parking lot, at times there are members of your homeless community or houseless community.
They're members of our All Saints community, but they don't have homes. But
Okay,
yeah.
but the fact that they can come in, they can just, we will invite people who are just walking by.
People just
come
walk by.
sit in and play with us.
It's awesome.
We don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
We haven't seen them before. We haven't met them. And within a matter of minutes, I'm playing la 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 la, and
That's
they're
right.
smiling.
Yep.
And they're laughing. And they're going, somebody sees me.
Yeah.
Somebody hears me.
Yeah.
Somebody feels me. Somebody is here for me. And maybe you're not the person who needs to be heard or felt, but maybe you're the person who needs to do the hearing, who needs to do the feeling, who needs to do the I'm available and I'm present and I'm here and I see you. So if things are going great for you, that's great. If things are not going great for you, that's okay too. We take the good and the so-called bad and we come together as a community. The idea that we come together and we make our brothers and sisters' problems our own and we try and solve them together. We can do that with drumming. Just a moment, just to say, I know you feel like nobody sees you, but I see you. I hear you, and you're doing great right now. I don't know about the moment before or the moment after, but right now, in this moment, there's all there is, and you are doing great. You're fully present, and you've shown up for yourself and for us in this time, in this moment. You've not projected yourself into your past or your future. You've sat right here and said, right now, I feel good. And we say, I see you. And not only do you feel good, but you look good, and you sound good, and I support you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, so much of what you're saying, you've done so much work in your life with the speeches of Dr. King, and you've committed those to memory, and they're a part of you, too.
Here.
Where do you see this all being of one piece? And can you give us a piece of Dr. King? Because I know this is part of another part of your ministry.
Sure. So I have a company called Message Media Group that combines all of the different things that I do under one umbrella.
Do you have a website people could go to?
They can find my name at geraldcrivers.com.
So geraldcrivers.com. We'll make sure that gets on our website and on our social media places.
Or www.geraldcrivers.vo, because I make a living as a voiceover artist.
Okay.
And that makes all the rest of this stuff possible.
Okay.
Then I can go teach a class for next to nothing.
Yep.
Or I can go do an MLK speech. Some people might have a donation, some people might not. You know, I'm not going into the homeless shelter and charging them thousands of dollars. I'm going in there because they want to be heard and they want to hear this message as well. And the rest of my life makes that possible. So for me, it's very much integrated. Being an actor, being a voiceover artist, being a master drummer, and being the voice of the late, great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Because he tells us to be the best that we can be. And I don't know, how much time do we have?
We can take, we got about 10 minutes.
There's one speech, since we're talking about the drum, there's one speech in particular called the Drum Major Instinct.
Oh,
no, we don't have time to do the whole speech, but I think I can do a little piece of it to help us understand the connection between drumming and just being present. Just being available.
Oh, please, that would be an honor.
Okay, then I'm going to stand for that.
Do what you got. I'm just going to sit back.
And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came unto him, saying, Master, we would that thou shouldest do for us whatsoever we shall desire. And they said unto him, What would ye that I should do for you? And they said unto him, Grant unto us that we may sit one on thy right hand and the other on the left hand of thy throne. Now very quickly, the other disciples got mad with James and John, but before we condemn them too quickly,
let us look calmly and honestly at ourselves, and we will discover that we too have some of the same James and John qualities. Now, they thought of Jesus as this kind of king, and they were saying, when you set up your kingdom, we want to sit one on the right hand and the other on the left hand of thy throne. And he said unto them, ye know not what ye ask. Can ye drink of the cup that I drink of, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? And they said unto him, we can. And he said unto them, ye shall indeed drink of the cup that I drink of. With the baptism that I am baptized, so shall ye all be baptized. But to sit on my right hand and on my left hand is not mine to give. It shall be given to those for whom it is prepared. You see, we all want to be important, to surpass others, to achieve distinction. There's deep down within all of us a kind of instinct, a real drum major instinct, a desire to be out front, a desire to be first, a desire to lead the parade. And it is something that runs the whole gamut of life. You know, our first cry as a baby was a bid for attention. And all through childhood, we asked life to grant us first place, our little bundle of ego. Now, you know, in adult life, we still have it, and we really never get by. We like to do something good, and you know we like to be praised for it. Now, if you don't believe that, you just go on living life, and very soon you will discover that you like to be praised, even if you don't believe it, and even if you don't deserve it. Somehow this warm glow we feel when we are praised or when our name is in print is something of the vitamin A to our ego. The only unhappy people about praise is when that praise is going too much towards somebody else. But let me rush on to my conclusion so we could see what Jesus was really saying. What was the answer that Jesus gave these men? One would have thought that Jesus would have said, you're selfish, you're out of your place. Why would you raise such a question? But that isn't what Jesus did. He did something altogether different. He said in substance, oh, I see. You want to be great? Wonderful. You want to be recognized? Wonderful. But recognize that he who is great among you shall be a servant, and he who is chiefest shall be servant of all. He said it's a good instinct if you use it right. It's a good instinct if you don't distort it and pervert it. Don't give it up. Keep feeling the need for being important. Keep feeling the need for being first. But I want you to be first in love. I want you to be first in moral excellence. I want you to be first in generosity. That is what I want you to do. And he transformed the situation by giving a new norm of greatness. You want to be great? Wonderful. But recognize that he who is great among you shall be a servant. This morning, the thing that I like about that definition, by giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You know you don't need a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your verb and your subject match to serve. You don't have to understand Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You just need a heart full of grace, and a soul generated by love. If you want to say that I was a drum major, say that I was a drum major for justice. Say that I was a drum major for peace. Say that I was a drum major for righteousness, and all of the other shallow things will not matter. I won't have any money to leave behind. I won't have the fine and luxurious things of life to leave behind, but I just want to leave a committed life. And that's all I want to say. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word of song, if I can show somebody he's traveling wrong, then my living will not be in vain. If I can do my duty as a Christian ought, if I can bring salvation to a world once wrought, if I can spread the message like the masters taught, then my living will not be in vain. Yes, Jesus, I want to be on your right side, but not for any selfish reasons. I want to be on your right or your left side, not in terms of some political ambition or kingdom, but I just want to be there in love and in justice and in truth, so we can make of this old world a new world.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we were ending the circle. How do we say goodbye?
We say goodbye by giving love and getting love from somebody nearby. Mm-hmm. And we can do this virtually by offering to give and to receive. To give love and to receive love. To give learning and to receive learning. To give patience and to receive patience. To give hope and to receive hope. And to give listening and receive listening.
Gerald. Thank you. Thank you. And thank all of you. Please come by. First of all, stick around here, because at 11:15 you can go right now to Children's Chapel with Kelly Aaron O'Phelan, or our meditative chapel. 11:15 we'll have our worship service with Rabbi Heather Miller preaching. At 1 o'clock, Lauren Grubaugh is going to preach. And then every Saturday morning, come on out, 10 a.m. on the parking lot.
I'll bring the drums.
Brother Gerald will bring the drums. I'll be there. We're going to do this together. It is balm. It is drinking from some deep waters, and you will be so glad that you did. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Blessings. Blessings. See you all.